Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Welcome to the first ever World People of Nature Day celebration, a day that has been marked to honor the work of nature professionals from across the globe. I'm Sabika Razvi from WeNaturalists, your host for this evening. As you all know, WeNaturalists is a one of a kind ecosystem dedicated to people and organizations working in nature. So it was only natural that we mark one day to celebrate the actions of those who dedicate their lives to protect, conserve, and preserve natural ecosystems. Through the course of this evening, we will witness some of the greatest minds in nature sharing their stories and thoughts from all over the world. I quickly want to tell you what you can expect during the event. We will start with a webinar, the theme for which is Green Childhood. And after that, we will be conducting the award ceremony. And without further ado, I would like to invite Amit, the founder of WeNaturalists, to share his vision.
Thanks, Sabika. On behalf of our co-founder Poonam, entire WeNaturalist family, I welcome you all for the first People of Nature Day celebration. What a journey it has been. When we started, we were like that kid who chases that ray of light with a sliver of hope and always believes that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. I remember when we started, a lot of people mentioned that you are entering a utopian world or probably trying to build a utopian world. We also were told that this community is so difficult to bring together. It's going to be very difficult for you to make them work together because they always love to work in silos. But to be honest with you, there were few who were optimists, and they said, this particular platform or what we have built over here as WeNaturalists is overdue. We could have done it 20 years back and our world would have been very different. Some also mentioned that probably we are doing a greatest service to the mankind because this is the only place where you can build a different world altogether, not for just naturalists or people of nature, but the world at one place. So it was very natural for us to go with a popular belief because people said that it's not going to work. But we thought that let's stay with the optimists. Let's stay with people who say that, yes, we can build it. We can build a different world altogether. So more than me, I'm glad that I had an amazing team who supported this vision. And more importantly, I would like to thank my co-founder Poonam, who stood as a rock to build this platform to where it is today. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this day is special for all of us at WeNaturalist in many ways, not just one. And I think it will be edged in history because of multiple reasons. Primarily, what I believe is that it's not about because we started on this particular day or the thought actually became and it actually got into our heads. It's also not about that WeNaturalists was launched on 1st of October, but I personally believe it's more important because we thought of celebrating people of nature on 1st of October. It's all of you, where we believe this, the world should celebrate everyone, each of these wonderful people who have dedicated their lives for nature, for work in nature, and would continue to do so till eternity. So I'm happy to see some of you resonating with the idea of People of Nature Day, and rightly so, because many such initiatives that we will take at WeNaturalists will help us achieve our larger goal. I think our goal stems from what we need to create as awareness among people, promote adoption of nature-based initiatives as a part of our daily lives, empower the ones who have been leading from the front. It is a movement, and it will only succeed if and when everyone comes together. And I firmly believe in this particular thought process that it's about if and it's about when, right? And I don't think both the answers are very clear, that we don't have time. We don't have time enough to do this. So without further ado, I want to call one of our key guiding angels on to the front and request Dr. Ramboj who's been a celebrated conservation mind, a great mentor, and most importantly, an amazing human being to share his thoughts about the World People of Nature Day. He's the CEO of Mobius Foundation, spent years together at UNESCO, and recently he has come on board with WeNaturalists to be a guiding light and to mentor us in our journey. Over to you, Dr. Bhuj.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you so much. I think I could just see the enthusiasm, the conviction, and hope that you just emitted for all of us, the whole community, the conservation community, the people of nature. And this day, I think it was, it should have happened long back. But anyway, I could see the spark in your eyes when we first met, that this is the man who can deliver. So finally, of course, I think we met around 3 months back.
Yeah, a bit more.
Yes, and you delivered it. So many congratulations to you and your entire team from all of us, we all the naturalists. So nothing much to say because this is the conservation community. Everybody knows each other and we all know about nature. And when UN started this whole initiative of SDGs, of course, people, planet, these two, of course, there are other 3 Ps, but people and planet, these are so inseparable, inalienable, that without connecting people with nature or the resources of the planet, we cannot survive. We cannot think of existence on this earth. So that is one. The other thing, my association with UNESCO for many years, we had a program, of course, it's still running, Man and the Biosphere program, MAB. I think one of the oldest conservation program, a wonderful program. It's your man of nature very well, people of nature very well gels into that program. And within the UNESCO, you have this close to around 900 network of biosphere reserves. And all those which are living within these reserves, within or around those areas, they are really the people of nature. And before that, of course, means you all might be familiar with these reserves and also the natural heritage sites, the World Heritage, which are basically the outstanding places having outstanding universal value for humanity. There is another area where, of course, I was associated, rather I began my career long back, some 3 decades back, working in the sacred forest groups in Northeast India. In fact, I was just going through a book which my professor wrote long back, Conserving the Sacred. And there, of course, he has documented, means that this is an edited book, but there are close to over 500 these sacred forest sites all along the world. So these people of nature are everywhere. And they are the hope, they are our conviction, greatest support. And I hope, without taking much of the time, this UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, I think that is another hope. And it is very well said that nature is the only solution, rather the solution for the climate crisis.
How are you?
COP26 is going to happen very soon. And I think what Secretary General of United Nations said when just after the COP25, that our assault, our war on nature must stop. And nature is the only solution for all our problems, including climate change. The other thing is biodiversity COP is also going to happen just after a week in Kunming, China. Of course, it will be virtually. And this is very important because, again, this COP is based, the theme is based on in harmony with nature, how we harmonize everything with nature. So people of nature, they have always worked towards that. In the Indian ethos, Prakriti or Purush, nature and the people again, thousands of years back, this ethos were very well ingrained that man and nature, they are inseparable. So with these words, I once again congratulate the Amit and his team.
Global warming.
All of you, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Boj. And I think all these words will always resonate with us, because I think every time that I've spoken to you, I've taken something home, and that's always stayed with me. And I try to build that as part of our ethos, part of our philosophy in one way or the other. Thank you so much for being there. So it's time for our discussion on the subject, which is extremely close to my heart, which is green childhood. And our theme of the event exactly goes with the current requirement, right? This subject will always remain the most prominent one for the next 20, 30 years, because this is the only thing where I feel can make a difference and let us achieve any targets, whether it's 2030 or 2050. It's an important component to help achieve WeNaturalist goals as well, because it's integrated with our thought process in every possible way. This thought is very simple, that we can't ignore the role of children in addressing climate crisis. And all that we have tried to do is build upon that. And I mean role of children as children and not when they grow old. And that's the most important thing. So I don't want to do anything over here if in case I get the result 20 years later. It doesn't make sense, right? So we have a lot to talk about this subject, but during the course of our discussion with the esteemed panel, right? But at this point in time, I'd like to call upon two angels, Anaira and Amira, who personify green childhood for us. They are living this concept at a very, very early age. They are so well supported by their mother and advising them, supporting them, in this journey. Yeah, amazing. Hi, girls. How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. Hi, everybody.
I'm doing good.
Great. So amazing to see you guys. So just to give you a little bit of a background. Since they were 4-year-old, they were drawn to recycling things at home and at the school. They have an amazing show, Sunny Side Up. It used to not only create more awareness about the SDGs, but make it fun and incorporate it in our daily lives by suggesting films to watch, books to read, etc. When it comes to green childhood, they lead by example. And I think there are a lot of things to be learned from them. I would let them tell us their stories and see how they can inspire the world of green childhood. Over to you guys.
Thank you. So what's green childhood? Because I'm serious, all the guests are waiting. Okay. So let's introduce ourselves. So first, greetings everyone who is present. So I'm Amara, and I'm Anaira, the founder of Thoughtful Minds ORG. So we interview change makers across the world. We hope to interview all of you soon. And of course, like create musical campaigns for different causes. And of course, we believe that like by partnerships, we can achieve all the SDGs. And being thoughtful is at the very core of doing all that you do. Think about it. What are the qualities which are common in all of you present and everyone who has organized this event? You all are thoughtful minds. We are very happy to have you all here and thank you for your time. Of course, WeNaturalists are a remarkable one-of-a-kind networking platform to organize this and give us this opportunity. So all WeNaturalists, welcome to the first ever International Day of People of Nature and this super event. And now coming back to green childhood. Green childhood is of course like ecological, like taking care of nature, environment, and etc. While we were thinking about it, we realized childhood is growing up and learning life skills as simple as getting potty trained or knowing what's dangerous like a knife. Similarly, when we begin academics, we begin with the ABCs. And so we thought of clubbing the ABCs and the green, and we came up with this book called The Green Kid ABCs. So yeah. This is a green kids ABCs making sustainability a part of learning and basic skills. So for instance, like Mutainai, M for Mutainai. So Mutainai is not wasting stuff and trying to use it for as much time possible. Thank you, Amaya. So this book really symbolizes green childhood for us. And the best part is that you can keep it for years, as it has so many age group levels. It's got alphabets, it's got pictures, facts, and concepts. It will also have teachers explaining concepts like umbrella species or even Mutainai, which is generally not taught somehow. We think the earlier kids are told about sustainability, the better, because we brought about change in our families, through the process when we were 4 years old, and through we can't stay we are making 100% sustainable choices. We are mindful of everything, send of a cloth bag for groceries, and removing single-use plastic from our homes, straws and packaging, and of course segregating our waste. So yeah. So you all must be thinking, these girls are just 8 years old. What must they know about all that we've been working hard for? Well, we do get that sometimes. We were just 3 years old when we were exposed to the concept of recycling and not wasting. Wasting has been there forever, and then when we were we went to year 2, we were introduced to the SDGs, and the SDGs. The SDGs were linked with all the schoolwork that we would do. So, Amara, we really got involved, and in the pandemic, when we had time, of course, help from my mom, to combine our two passions, SDGs and the kids' reviews. That's when thoughtful minds came into being. Yes. So,
Great.
As we believe being thoughtful is most important in order to achieve any SDG, and only together all the problems of the world be solved. For example, climate change is linked to gender inequality. Women in villages have to travel really far to get water, and increasing unavailability of water makes their life much harder. Or the poor people become poorer because of the climate problems, and because of the floods, and the wildfire affect the poor even more. They lose their houses, jobs, everything, even lives, as explained for G is for justice in our book. So the J is for justice in our book, for our climate book. You can't find it right now. We feel every child has the power to change her or his family. They are the biggest change makers, and honestly, they don't care about making profit and harming animals and environment. Some might not change their practice of using plastic bags at home, but if their child insists, they definitely will. And we hope that green childhood movement, by Team We Naturalists will enlighten all our future, and this book, The Green Kids ABCs plays an important role in it. And it's for free, like just go on our bio and the link of like the flip book there will be is there online book version. And after all the green introduction, education should be free. Like all of the green education should be free. We would like to conclude by quoting William Wordsworth: "The child is the father of the man." And thank you. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Your encouragement would mean a lot to us. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you so much, girls. And yes, you're right. Child is the father of the man. So agree totally. Just one quick question. Did your mom ever say that why are you asking so many questions?
I don't get the questions.
Did your mom ever say that you are asking too many questions?
In the sunny side up?
No, no, it's okay. I got it. So thank you so much for being there, girls. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for letting us be here. It's been a really an honor. We've been so excited.
Thank you. Honor is ours. Thank you. So thank you, and it was an amazing session, and how kids can actually influence not just their siblings, but also bring newer ideas at the home front. So I think that's the living example. I think we have crossed already our time frame, so I would straight away jump into our panel discussion and straight get into our illustrious panel for the evening and for the morning for various other people who joined from different parts of the world. It was such a joy to put together this panel and who we have in the room. I'd like to invite Tavi Joda, amazing friend. And the best thing is whenever he calls me, "Hey friend, I'm there," right? That makes my day most of the time. Whenever I discuss green childhood with him, he says, "Let's do it together." That's what makes the day, the brighter. And the most brighter is when he agreed to be part of our panel here. So Tabi is an award-winning indigenous agroforester, author, and eco-entrepreneur. He leads 1 billion trees for Africa, one of the biggest projects that probably Africa has ever seen, an initiative that's going to be planted almost 3 million trees between 2010 and 20. He is also the ambassador for Africa Great Green Wall Initiative. Welcome, Tabi.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you, my brother. Namaste.
Namaste.
Yeah, and
thank you.
And thank you, everybody, all the green citizens of the world.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Radhika Suri, Director of Environment Education at WWF India. It's country's leading conservation organization. She's begun drafting an environment education strategy that's been implemented across 14 states in the country. Amazing feat. And I think, again, thank you, Radhika, for being here and being part of this particular panel. And I hope we can do justice to the time that we spent over here.
My pleasure, Amit. Happy to be here and a very important discussion.
Thank you.
Excited, yeah.
I'd like to invite Nina Hamilton. She leads the North American Association for Environmental Education Global Youth Leadership Act initiatives, which works to recognize, connect, and empower young people, shaping sustainable communities around the world. Welcome, Nina, and I think your participation would really make a difference, because the kind of work that you've been doing with young adults and youth, primarily with NAI, it's going to mean a lot to this particular panel. I'd like to invite a very special guest, Irfan, who's a 17-year-old conservationist, environmentalist, and naturalist who's always loved nature and the natural world. He started researching scientifically on animals and plants at the age of 10. I don't know when he studied, but yes, he's among us now. Hi, Irfan. And this panel would love to get most out of your understanding of nature in last 7 years of your early days. So Irfan, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Amit.
Pleasure to have you here. And now it's time to bring our host and moderator for the panel, Edison, who's been, while working with her, she's become a dear friend. And I think most of our conversations have been so one-sided that she keeps on saying, and I pretend that I'm listening to her or probably understanding whatever she says. But yes, Edison, thank you. Thank you for being here. She comes up with a very illustrious career based out of Hollywood. So I don't think Hollywood speaks her language normally, but I guess but she's among us. She's a writer, documentary film director, and podcast host based in Hollywood. She creates transmedia stories as a fundamental and immersive form of communication. She is the co-founder of Emerging World Project, a collective of conservationists and artists telling stories of nature around the world. And I thought that Edison would be one of the best person to moderate this because she brings a little different experience than all of us. One, every storyteller has a much deeper perspective about life. And at the same time, she's worked and learned a lot of things beyond the US, right, which brings her to a different perspective altogether. And I hope that we have a very stimulating discussion now. Over to you, Edison. You're on mute. I'll just request everyone to go off mute. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I hope that I can do some justice here. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I think it's one that, of course, did need to be started a long time ago, but we're here now, and that's the most important thing, in that we're having this conversation. What I think is one of the best parts of this conversation is that we are all from different backgrounds with very different perspectives. And what I have learned in telling stories around the world is that these perspectives matter, and the perspective from people from their own communities are very powerful and very different from my own. So when we started the Emerging World Project at the onset of the COVID pandemic, we knew that the world was changing. We had already, as scientists and conservationists, been watching for many years, and now we were stepping into it where the world was about to really get hit with a lot at the same time. So from the perspective of a storyteller, I think looking at these changes in our world and how they affect us because of the interrelatedness of every single thing is what we as artists and conservationists wanted to do. And also to look at the psychology as our own psychology changes when we talk to different people, when we learn about different people and the importance of their communities and what's happening in their communities as a result to climate change. So with that, I'd love to start conversations where we think about, especially as we go into talking about green childhood, where we're thinking about when we noticed our own personal relationship to nature. And I'll just say in brief why I think this is an important starting point is we have grown as adults to sort of view this experience as something separate, something that's happening. That's a beautiful bird out there. That's a beautiful river. And maybe perhaps forgetting what our relationship is to that. And I found that if we sort of ponder that a little bit, it will open up our minds and open up that aperture as to how important and how interconnected we are to the whole and not separate. And for a lot of us, myself, very much so, that has been a major point in changing how I live in the world and my awareness in the world. I can accumulate a ton of facts and information, but when I go outside and I am in direct communication and experience with nature as part of it, then my aperture opens and I find that ideas and answers come. So I would just like to start with everybody perhaps jumping in with when they first noticed their relationship with the natural world. And because your names are really small, I'm just going to let you raise your hand and jump right in instead of me calling on you, if that's okay. Who would like to start?
I can go first if you want.
Wonderful.
Radhika, yeah. So can I go? Addison,
Absolutely.
I have a very interesting story which sounded like trauma when I was a child. So I had a father who was a total nature enthusiast and loved going for morning walks because he found it very, beautiful. But I was all of, 7, 8, and I didn't understand. For me, that was mania. And I lived in a place, where it used to rain a lot for 4 months. So I was very excited that, these traumatic morning walks would stop where we would look at nature. And well, he didn't stop it. He, got us huge umbrellas and we continued to go out in nature. And somewhere there, that connect grew so strong that my eyes totally changed the way I looked at the world. And I didn't realize what was happening for me. It was just a child who was being dragged out every day. And once I was out, I was very fascinated. And our favorite spot was looking at the ants. So my hero is not a tiger that influenced me, but a tiny little ant. And so this childhood kind of, I didn't even realize what had happened. And I went on in life, influencing friends, loving plants, watching trees, I did it very automatically. But then later on, when I became an educator, I realized I set up only green schools. And this was way, way back. And I didn't know that an ant could have influenced me. And today I work in the environment sector. So a small thing. And in our times, we didn't have so much waste. We didn't have so much money. So, it was a different green childhood. It was a childhood but I just knew I was connected to nature. And that's how, my whole life has turned out. So I think so that's when that was the point. And then it naturally flew into my life and it's never left me. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. That really is. That's wonderful. Nina, how about you?
Yeah, I'd love to share. And I will say I get asked this question a lot. And you think as an environmental professional, it would be an easy one, but it's so, it can be really hard to pinpoint that one moment when it feels like just as far back as you feel like you've had a connection with nature. But I really thought hard about this one. And I think it was really just having the freedom to explore our backyards and the kind of wooded natural areas around wherever I lived, and having that freedom from my parents to just go and explore and pick up twigs and, discover birds' nests. And I don't really have a good memory from like 5 years and younger, but I very clearly remember our backyard from when I was 5 years old. And I think that really says something about, where I was spending time and what was really connecting with me. And that of course turned into, I was clearly in awe of nature and of these spaces. And that turned into going to see wildlife and national parks and going on hikes. It turned into bigger things and even more awe for nature, but it really started small and really close to home. And I'm just really thankful for my parents, for whether they knew it or not, for giving me that freedom to go and explore and really encouraging that, and then building on that when they saw that I had, was building that interest. So I think that's where that connection and my, I would say my awe and really respect for nature started.
That's beautiful. I'd love hearing, of course, that we have the inability to come up with one instance, but once we start to think about one of them, they all start to roll in, and we never really related. Like, I always tell the story of how I made pancakes from the inside of acorns. And I never thought about it until I was asked the question, like, how did you know, I was asked the question, and that memory came, and then it just comes together. It's food. It's this thing that was outside that I was making into something that I could nourish my friends, the squirrels, with. So, and then the trickle effect happens. And I think when we stay, I feel as if when we stay connected to that trickle effect and keep checking it, right? Keep checking it. Always slowing ourselves down enough to check. You know, have I appreciated nature today? Have I received the grace of nature today? And have I given to that? Always checking that, no matter what, from the tea that's in my cup, right? From the bamboo sheets that I may sleep on. And somehow, at least my experience has been, it wakes it up, and for me, the ideas flow. It's like, oh, and I loved listening to the twins, because it's never too early. It's never too early. Perhaps the harder parts of what's happening, the harder parts that are hard to digest for us, even as adults, need to be looked at with a little caution. But when I mentor children in the wilderness, I sort of combine the two. You know, this is the beauty, and this is how we're losing the beauty of this, and how losing the beauty of this affects us. So, anybody else would love to share? Erfran, how about you? You're on mute.
Oh, thank you very much. So good day to all.
Hi.
And before I begin, I want to say I'm truly honored to be able to speak to you all today. And a special thanks to WeNaturalists, Dr. Amit and his team, for everything they do and have to do in the future as well. When I think of how all these things started, it's a bit tricky to think of it. Since when I was a child, 5-6 years old, and I used to sit in the garden and just look at the whole biodiversity that's going on. The butterflies coming and feeding on the nectar. The butterflies themselves later being fed by birds and all these things. And that was a realization that if we take the planet as a whole, it operates just like a living, breathing organism, made of countless different species, working, like its organs, each with a, different role to play. And later that came to my mind, but I was at the point of time when I was having a drive in a huge road with my grandfather, and there was a time when there was an Iranian tortoise that passed from that road. And back then I didn't actually know that what I see there is soon going to be one of the rarest creatures on that time. Years passed by, and I saw that, well, I don't see it anymore. I don't see the tortoises anymore. I don't see the amount of butterflies I saw that time. And that made me realize that for any of the biomes on Earth to work, the plants and animals, fungi and microbes within them must all play their part. Because it is the entire world that works as a group to help the whole living world function. And it's pretty difficult to tell where it started, because since the childhood I had this love for the natural world. All my toys have been of animals and all. But then I think the main thing that I realized that when all these things started was the time when I saw that tortoise, that made me realize that we are eliminating the natural world. We are replacing them with ourselves.
Yeah, that's difficult to digest and to start your young life on with those kinds of concerns. Yeah, it's difficult. Tabi, I'd love to hear.
Okay.
I'd love to hear what your early childhood memories might be.
Yeah, nice. First, I want to say thank you for the organizer, and thank you all for turning up, because this meeting speaks the depth of my mind. If there is anything that I worry of when I go to, I worry on when I go to bed and when I wake up, is the state of the earth. What will be the next days? So these concerns have been the biggest concerns in my life. And if you check on my hands and on my body, I have 7 scars that are as visible as, you know, anything that you can see from 7 meters, you know. And this is because when I was just 4 years old, my dad and I always goes into the landscape, because first, all the trees in the family landscape were all cut down, and I was 4 years old. And then I had this challenge with my father. It was really a controversial moment for me, because each time the rains are threatening to fall, my dad will hold my hands and say, "This is the planting time." And I will say, "No, I'm not going." He has to force me. I have to be with him, and we have to plant hundreds of trees every day that the rain's falling. And when I was 8, 9, I started appreciating the essence of that action, because while that was going on, I didn't like it. To be very candid, I didn't like it. It was not fun, because we have to be under the rain, we have to be planting, I have to hurt my legs. So I had like 7 physically visible scars on my body that lives with me, and I'm sure will live with me till the day I go to my grave. And these scars are an indication of all the pain of all the time under the rains, and the thorns of the trees that I encountered when we were growing the forest. And we grew more than 40,000 native trees in my native community. And as a result of that, these were indigenous trees that produce food, fruits, nuts, and oils that coincidentally were sold to sponsor me to school, primary, secondary, and university, perhaps even giving me the knowledge that I have today to be able to speak with people like you, and to be able to appreciate and even understand how to use the internet. So this is a historical milestone that goes deep down into a childhood pain that turned into a pleasure and also into massive gains. So to say, when I was 7, 8, I started appreciating that these trees were producing beautiful fruits, beautiful nuts, beautiful, nice, essential oils that we were using them. I have never used cosmetic oils from any shop. Anyway, since I used the oils from nature, from the trees and from, the shrubs. So this changed my perspective since as a child. And because it helped me through school and changed my perspective from a very tender age. And as you can see on my, perhaps on my DP here, you can see the photo there. If you see it very well, this is like some 7 years back. And I told myself that because this became again to me, I came out of university, I'm not working for the UN, I'm not working for any agency, I'm working in the forest that my father and I planted when we were young, producing essential oils, producing nuts, producing fruits and roots and medicinal plants that actually give me income and has created 79 jobs and through 40 value chains. So the whole scenario is a scenario of a historical mix of pain and pleasure that actually instill a strong sense of natural love, beauty, satisfaction, and of course, that serious yearning for more and more lands and more families to have this kind of biodiversity, richness, and resources that I was born into, and how these most essentially can be resourced to just bring back our lost biodiversity values and assets that are actually diminishing, with our eyes, seeing them going, and the loss of ecosystems that are degrading landscapes, creating resource scarcities that are tearing communities apart in unhealthy competition for scarce resources that are resulting into violent conflicts that are sometimes displacing people, at sometimes creating human suffering disproportionately for people who did not intend or perhaps actually make this happen. So we now have innocent, involuntary victims of biodiversity loss, ecosystem depletion, which I feel very strongly that the kind of childhood that I had, as Anne Admit started this discussion, that other children all across the world need this kind of orientation, to see beyond their childhood, to see beyond the vulnerability of their childhood, just like children or just being children. They should see beyond and perceive a livelihood of resilience and becoming the ambassadors of solutions that can catalyze the new kind of microeconomic systems that are based on revived, thriving biodiversity and ecosystem services that creates the abundance and the riches that I am currently living in, that should spread across the entire globe, from India to America, from America to Latin America and Asia, creating a world that is reversing these humanly or these man-made degradations that have placed us where we are today. So it pains me a lot. I can speak on this from now till the next day because I live this life. But what hurts me very much is I don't want to see these pains. I don't want to see these twin children that just spoke earlier becoming victims of what they did not intend, what they didn't invest, what they never aspired. Their aspiration is sustainable, resilient, and a safer world. And that's, of course, the background where I come from. And I look forward to sharing perhaps more as we move forward. In the interest of time for us to speak. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Who did I miss that would like to start off and give us a little bit about their relationship, noticing their relationship to the natural world? Or we can move on because Tabi touched on a couple of things, and I don't know about you all, but one thing that did spark me was this anxiety that young people are already feeling so early on in their lives by inheriting something that they did not, in fact, do, which in turn creates anxiety for us adults who then feel like we have to take responsibility, and we all have to take responsibility. But I guess my question is, what kind of projects are we thinking about that not only will introduce and get children, young people engaged, because engaging in direct action is really what's going to change the culture and our values. We have to really take a deep look at our values once again. And I believe that for young people to be directly engaged in action is huge. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Let me just swing into that so that I perhaps just to continue what I was saying earlier on. Addison, sorry, very straightforward.
No problem.
It's a very big anxiety. And the reason why we need these and we need to heavily emphasize and work strongly on this is because 30 years ago, the president who is the now president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, didn't have this orientation. if he had the mining exposure or reckless mining activities that are going on in South Africa will not happen today. The president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, 30 years ago didn't have this orientation. Modi in India didn't have this orientation. Biden in the United States didn't have this orientation 30 years ago, as well as Angela Merkel in Germany, and of course Macron in France. I can perhaps, I'm not saying they didn't have, but I'm not sure they had this kind of anxiety that we are having now when they were our ages or when they were younger. So if we have 30 years to go for the SDGs, for the NDCs, for the Paris Agreement, for the Sendai framework, different global frameworks. These are just frameworks on paper that need foot soldiers, that need research, that need implementation, that needs conversion of commitment into concrete actions. That means the human framework of children, kids, adolescents with the right dose of orientation, knowledge, moral, ethical standard, ethical behavior that gives them the foundation of love, passion, interest, and anxiety for a breaking ecological system and how to be solutions. If they have this orientation like we are doing now, then 30 years to come, the Bidens of that time will be greater, better, more environmentally conscious Bidens.
Did we lose him?
Yes, I think so.
Radhika, I would love to hear what project you have worked on or are working on, which I'm sure probably have changed or shifted.
That produces green.
Radhika, would you like to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah,
fantastic.
Okay. So in WWF India, we have been working in the space of environment education for nearly 50 years now. And we started with a program called Nature Clubs of India, where we used to take children out to nature and, take them for camps and do the traditional things. And in India, we obviously, like for us, like I said in the beginning, that when I was a child, just connecting with nature was enough. Our life was pretty sustainable from the way we ate, the way we shopped. So, the needs were not like that. So 6 years back, in India, we already have an environment education, mandated program by the government in schools. But it's very knowledge-based here. And there's a lack of action. So 6 years back, we launched a program. It's called Ek Prithvi in Hindi, which means one planet. And we take children out on nature trails. We make them do a lot of activities that kind of, brings back, because this generation is very disconnected from nature. So it begins with, bringing that connection. And after that, we give them themes and projects to do. So you take food, you take water, and so they learn a little bit about it, the knowledge part of it, and then they go into what is the issue, and then they finally go solving it. And that at times takes them to the community. And what we have realized that the whole action part of it is very, very interesting for the children. So experientially, they learn. And what they realize at the end, that even if they are children, their actions matter, because they can actually see the change happening, even if it's that, a cleanup or setting up a waste segregation system or gardening or whatever. So we kind of work in a way that, where they actually do something and their actions count and the community recognizes it. So this is, the model we've been using, and it's been running across the country in around 11 states. And it's been 6 years now. So we are hearing a lot of stories of change. We did put in an M&E into the system, very hard to measure impact in environment education. But we did reach out to Stanford University, and we have done a M&E, with the children, and it's on, behavior change. But of course, it's quite critical, but we have done a baseline on that. So yes, attempting to do that, but yes, very action oriented work, and looking at all the themes these days, it's biodiversity, it's water, it's food. So whatever is relevant today, yes.
Right. I would imagine that we have to look at how to measure these and discover ways that we can measure the favorable impact, so that we can continue to run those types of programs. The experiential aspect is hugely important. Feels hugely important to me.
Addison, also I'd like to add, like Tabi was saying, time is short, and therefore organizations who do work, we should not get too captured in our programs. We should always be critical about, is it really working, is it not, how do you get it better? So I think so M&E is very very important too.
Right, and all of us communicating about what is working and what might be working,
what's not working.
Exactly. Nina, I would love for you to speak on that with what program you're working with.
Yeah, so climate anxiety is real. I feel it, and I know that young people around the world are feeling it. One thing that we are doing, gosh, we have so much going on as a network. I support the Global Environmental Education Partnership, and we are a network of networks. But one thing that we do through our youth leadership program, EE30 Under 30, is it's partly about recognizing young leaders that are doing amazing things around the world using environmental education. But a big part of that is creating this platform to really shine a spotlight on their stories and their journeys and who they are as leaders, and partly their journey through their green childhood and what led them to the path that they're taking right now. And I think showing those positive stories, showing those positive kind of figures that young people can look up to, and looking up to other young people that might, that look like them, I think can be really powerful. And it can really help relieve that kind of helplessness that we can feel when we see all these doom and gloom headlines. And it is important. It is so important to know about the issues and to know about the urgency of all of these issues. But I think climate anxiety is partly a result of just really focusing on those issues and focusing less on, there is a lot of great stuff going on around the world and a lot of great stuff being led by young people. And I think giving young people that opportunity to see other young people doing amazing things can help them think, okay, I can do this. I have the capacity to make change. It doesn't have to be at the global level. It can be in my community. It can be with my church. It can be with my school. So that's just one way that we're trying to, I guess, relieve that a little bit and help people see themselves in, taking these actions and feel like, okay, I do have the capacity and the ability to do this in whatever way makes sense for my community.
Right. Erfan, I would love to hear about, I know that you have is it a YouTube channel and a science-based YouTube channel? I would absolutely love to hear about that, because I think that social media is playing a major role in how we are communicating to young people. And that's very important, because our communication skills need to be sharpened because of the amount of information and misinformation that we receive, and the fact that we are no longer so isolated in that we are global. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So social media is a wonderful tool that can be steered in a humane direction. It needs steering. So I would love to hear what's going on for you and how you think that what you're doing is helpful.
So as I mentioned, like let's say people who were alive back then before I was born, they saw an unsteady, slow change in biodiversity. But once we came in, we saw, well, oh my God, if we compare everything else to what happens, like let's say 20 years back or 30 years back, the change is going drastically. And the change I'm talking about is not about climate change. It's about the twin power of climate change, biodiversity loss. And we better go on a short journey. So as we know, it's 5 mass extinctions have happened on Earth. And the last time it happened, it brought an end to the age of dinosaurs. 75% of all species were wiped out. And life had no option but to rebuild. And it was a time when we came in picture. Scientists call it the Holocene. And it was, I think, the most stable period in our planet's history. For thousands of years, the average temperature has not moved up or down by 1 degree Celsius. And the rich and thriving biodiversity around us was the key to that stability. Whether it was phytoplankton in the oceans or simply coral reefs and much more. The Holocene, we can say, was the Garden of Eden for ourselves. Its regime of seasons was so reliable that it gave our species a unique opportunity. We invented farming. And in that time, we had no idea that, okay, one day we might be the main power that threatened the very existence of the natural world. And well, it was after then where we had realized many things that, okay, the natural world is finite. It's not infinite, because on December 1968, the Apollo mission was launched. And it was the very first time that any human had moved far away enough from Earth to see the whole planet. Indeed, our planet. Vulnerable and isolated. And on that time, we realized that in that one shot was the whole of humanity. Nothing else. And it was a realization. There's a point of time where we were like, just imagine in a whole small sphere, the whole population just climbed up. Realized that, okay, our world is not limitless. There is an edge to our existence. It was this rediscovery of a fundamental truth that we are fundamentally bound by and reliant upon the finite natural world around us. Yet we kept on growing, at the point of time where we have eliminated 96% of the mass mammals on our planet. It's now our cells and livestock that we have domesticated. So the project that I work on, as you had mentioned, is on YouTube, of course. And because I believe if someone such as myself wants to take action, they will always have a question of why should I do so? So I believe that an understanding of the natural world will lead to that action. Because as after the Industrial Revolution, our growth was so dramatic that as we grew, we lost our connection with nature. Now we live in civilized worlds where seeing a bird indeed is just something out of a science fiction movie. And I can see that the research and the experience I had luckily allowed me to find nature where I live. Checking under the rocks or trees, or simply just like going in a park at night and seeing this huge diversity of beetles. So I'll start with the most successful that I felt project that I had was when the COVID-19 pandemic had just started. I thought, well, it is a perfect opportunity to learn how to use technology, how to do online lessons, because I was a person who simply was more into physical work, getting my specimens to children and showing them, well, this is the Arabian gazelle skull, and it's found across the UAE. But then I had to do this online, and it had a huge impact, from at first 20 to almost 100 people all at once from around the world. And after each session, we had a drawing session. And till today, there are people who are contacting me, but are you going to start another one? Since the time you have started, our children have begun to love nature and start drawing on it. And I have got friends who in the start had no idea about nature. They never cared about it. I have a friend myself who has had, we can say, arachnophobia. But I had to go taking him to a field work, and I said, this spider is not going to bite you. So I believe that getting people closer to nature, especially children, is very important. Because children need to have contact with the natural world on a daily basis. It can be in schools, school playgrounds. Because when they have the connection, they'll understand, well, this beetle I see, for example, is something that me and my future is dependent on it. And in that way, it will promote action. Because there are children who are approaching me almost on a daily basis, asking me, but where did your journey begin? Where you're getting stung while preserving animals and all these things. Why don't you hate them? I said, because fundamentally, we are dependent on them of the aspects of life. And because without green spaces, our world cannot function. Nowadays, let's say, it's mostly a story about climate change. And we are forgetting that, well, there is a twin problem, very silently moving from Earth's crust, beneath Earth's crust, biodiversity loss. Because Holocene, as I mentioned earlier, and it was stable because of its biodiversity. So to help us fight against climate change, we need to bring out the biodiversity, the very thing that gave rise to our living world. So I think all my work, which I've done, basically awareness and how to get people involved in the natural world, whether it was my recent documentary called Earth, Our Living Planet, where I had invited some young key speakers to take us on a journey to what they think the natural world has changed over their lifetime. And how, if we act now, we can still save our planet, because the best way we can do so is bring back its biodiversity. And I've been keeping some insects also, live insects. And I've seen, if given the chance, nature can recover in the most extraordinary way. So again, it's all about understanding, avoiding waste, because everything can be recycled at some point of time. I myself have also given up meat. So we can say that if we don't waste, if we understand what we do, and if we bring back the wild as young people, we can surely change our planet and save our planet also.
That's really wonderful. There are many avenues to spark our curiosity, from insects to mammals, when we think about biodiversity and the importance of it. So I really appreciate your ability to articulate that and go so deeply with that. And how are you measuring, I don't want to say success, but how are you measuring, let's say, involvement and engagement? What are you looking at? What are the metrics for you?
Well, I think the most thing I'm looking at is that, well, there are people right now, which at some point of time were seeing my documentaries or had joined my online sessions. And at this point, they themselves are starting to realize and take action. And one of them is my very close friend. He has his own YouTube channel spreading awareness about tigers and mammals. And the success is basically of seeing how much children are getting involved. But at some point of time before the COVID-19 pandemic, all of my 100, back then it was 100, but now it's 180 plus specimens were in the school. And almost every day, this one year ones and the year twos, the teachers used to borrow the specimens, and the children were astonished by what they saw. And that made them get involved in taking action. And I believe that children themselves are getting much more environmentally aware as we move by. And I've been seeing comments and features on Instagram that are simply telling me that, well, all I do is being successful. Like at some point of time, near to my house was a point where it was filled with biodiversity. It was pretty unexpected because that beach was located in between the city, and it was pretty small, and the whole sea was filled with life, from crescent grasses on. But at some point of time, I saw, well, the climate change suddenly hit it. There was a huge bloom with jellyfishes, and I think that time children were also not aware. I'm actually writing a book which tells all my journey in detail, and that was the time when I'm like, well, let me take action, because I saw children taking up all these sea stars, and sea stars actually are animals that when they serve will actually detach their body parts, and that's dangerous for them. And there was this man who just walking past a beach, which was mainly the part of the beach where it was mainly closed for swimming because it was a jellyfish area. He took this jellyfish and threw it out of the water. And I said, well, this can be a food for a sea turtle. So it is what the sea turtle is what we are dependent on, because the sea turtle itself keeps seagrass populations under control. At that time, the man realized, and the man himself was pretty astonished. And he swam back into the sea while getting stung and putting the jellyfish back in a deep part of the sea and coming back. And he was saying, but I got stung, but I think it was worth it for the sea turtles. So I was mentioned by one of the persons in my podcast that no matter how much people see your videos, no matter how much followers you have on Instagram, inspiring one will have a colossal effect, because that one will inspire his family and friends. And it may not seem obvious, but that will create a huge impact on a world basis. Because as I mentioned earlier, like there are many people who are asking me
Absolutely.
on a daily basis that, well, where are you finding all these animals? How do you preserve them? I don't see animals when I go to parks. Where do you see them? And I tell them, well, if you look, animals are everywhere. But the main thing is you have to take action and do it in a right manner. Make sure that you don't touch the animals and watch them at the safe distance. So young are getting involved in caring about the environment, because when they see videos of the distance pass, they'll see where the fish we caught before compared to now are more than 1/3 the size. So they're being able to realize, and that I think what success can be said, that my programs are spreading an awareness and an understanding in young people, and I can see the impact of it.
That's really wonderful. It reminds me of a conversation that I had with Amit a while ago, and the expression he used was we were talking about spreading awareness at scale, problem solving at scale, all of this at scale. We're at a tipping point. We're at the threshold. We all know that. So we have to do this at scale. And I had always worked at scale. And in this point in my life, I decided I didn't want to work at scale, that I needed to tone it down and work really close to home and rework even my own understanding of my relationship within this whole life thing and the continuation of our existence. So Amit said to me, artist, gallery, artist, gallery. So I think if we recognize which one we are, artist or gallery, and we make sure that we foster a collaboration with the other, then that one little spark, which may not seem like a little bit, just one guy on the beach with a jellyfish, but I'm collaborating with an Amit who is doing WeNaturalists, who is broadening this, then now I'm blah, 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 blah. So I think it's important for us as individuals to really look at where we are, not to spread ourselves thin, and allow ourselves to use the generous talents and abilities of those around us that may not be. I just met Tabi today. But find the ability to reach out to those people that can fill that space. And so we don't feel so not only alone, but also like what we're doing doesn't matter. I wanted to ask you, Tabi, about media and the role for you in looking at media in terms of inclusivity and positivity. Because I'm sure that we are all witnessing, again, a lot of misinformation. One thing that you mentioned was, just sort of offhandedly, don't touch the animals. And that's something to think about as we encourage people to be out more in nature and young people to be out more in nature. You're naturally going to want to interact with animals, but where is the line, and is there a line, and why is there a line? And those kinds of questions have to be answered, I believe, with young children, because for some reason the young children I'm with, they immediately just want to take the gecko and put it in the container and take it home, or oh, it's a turtle, I want to put it in something and take it home. So what is happening there has to be discussed in terms of what is your relationship with this being, this living being that has a life of its own, and not one that is that you are owner of. So there's another thing about value, about where we stand as human beings, that has to be explored within ourselves. This sort of dominion over has to be explored, and where does it still sit in our own personal lives? And then are we transferring that? Are we just transferring that on to another generation, or are we actually actively exploring perhaps a little bit of a misunderstanding or or a forgetfulness of what our place is within nature. And within is the operative word. So Tabby, I'd love for you to speak about media just for a minute here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Addison. It's amazing that you really capture this very essential aspect, media, communication, who is here, who is saying what, to whom, how is it said, is it in the right way, is it also taken the right way, and what purpose it's serving, what impacts is that information creating. It's a really, really big challenge. And now I just look, for instance, in the last 50, 80 years, the generation that passed didn't have the possibility of the kind of media communication we have today. But of course, we can also see that that's the generation where there was that big gap, that lost of connection between nature and science and what we call development, that has created so much of the challenges that we are going on today. So media has a very big role to play in communicating the right information in the right way and to the right audience. Unfortunately is that who owns the conventional media today? Are they for nature or are they against nature? Are they benefiting from the degradations that are actually putting communities on the spot and creating more and more wealth for those who continue to monopolize information and create a disinclusion or create fragmentations that continually, disinclude people like you and I, who are in possible always close to nature, trying to. So these are very important things for us to know. Who is controlling this media? We can't actually have this strong access. The media doesn't have the inclusiveness. We agree that it doesn't have. So that's why there is a lot of talk out there and very little action. And then the talk gets amplified while the action is actually suppressed, because there are people who feel that the status quo should stay. And the people who package the little noise or little talk without any action gets packaged and amplified across the entire global echo chamber. So this is one of the challenges that we naturalists, we supporting and been pushing, advocating for nature sustainability actually facing, because we get suppressed, we get, actually removed out of the radar and placed where the truth, the reality, like he just shared, practicalities, these practicalities aren't communicated, aren't known, and aren't brought into the open. Because if they are brought into the open, they actually constitute threats to those who control this media and actually who benefit from the degradations and destruction of biodiversity and ecosystems. So sure. You made one very vital point that I really support. I talk about unconventional media. You said we just met today. That is unconventional media. The power of the word of mouth. The word of mouth was the power that was used in America to create the independence of the United States of America. Because the power of the information was shared all across non-conventional systems within communities, within farmers, within herders, within fishers, within artisans, within horticulturalists. These people within this rather are you and I in this very threatened modern world where we are challenged by this inclusion from the media mainstream and placed on a rather where the truth that we speak doesn't get out there. So you and I can amplify our voices by staying strongly closely to each other, maintaining the truth, the science that we know, the experiences that we have, sharing them strongly, pushing them strongly because, of course, like now, people learn more when they see, when they feel, and when they touch than when they just hear. That's why, irrespective of all the suppression of the good works that we are doing, we still have the ability to survive because a few people are seeing, hearing, and touching what we do, and they are supporting, they are getting closer and closer. That means we are building a gradually growing global family of realists, environmentalists, conservationists, scientists that stand with nature in their hearts and in their souls, not really depending on the weaknesses that have been created by a faulty conventional media that doesn't care. So to say, we should not only see the media as, just a media, we should also see them from different perspectives, the media that supports and the media that doesn't support. And we should work with the media that support. But most importantly, you are a media, I am a media. We are a family and a media that is pushing this common practice, this common belief, and this common, this common movement that should one day engulf the entire global system and bringing ourselves and even those who are denying closer in harmony with nature. I believe that this disjointed communications, disjointed actions don't create any significant impact. But joint actions, joint commitment, joint effort is what creates the kind of action that we need to see. And this will also help us, sorry, Nina, not to take so much time, that today, right, there's a pre-COP conference of parties on climate change taking place, going on right today. Did you see any real practical conservationists in that meeting? Did you see anyone who soils their hands protecting wildlife, protecting trees, growing trees? Did you see any of them in that conference? You didn't see any of them. You only see the people that are packaged by some media because they preach the voice, or they raise the voice that helps consolidate them. So helps them feel like they are doing something when they're actually not doing nothing. As I speak, plastic is drowning into the ocean. They are in the pre-COP. As I speak, trees have been cut in the forest. We are the defenders, but they are discussing. So all these are the challenges that we face, Addison. We need to create a more realistic way in addressing these challenges and shying away from the talk without action.
Agreed.
Through action.
Absolutely agreed. I think it's a beautiful note for us to each just have a little closing thoughts about that. I want to share that I am immensely grateful for WeNaturalists, for the minds behind that. I think it is a space, in a way, that will lend itself just to what you're speaking to, where we're getting dirt under our nails, and I want to get dirt under my nails with all of you. So let's please stay in contact. And whoever wants to start, let's just give ourselves a couple minutes to give some closing thoughts on.
I'd love to have Nina, maybe. What does she think? And because she's been dealing with so many people like Irfan, maybe she'd like to say something about what he just mentioned about, it's not about just backyard, it's much bigger way of influencing people. So maybe what do you think about it?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think, like, going back to all of our stories about where we started, it can start in your backyard. It can start in your house, with your parents bringing natural materials for you to be playing with. It doesn't have to be at school. It doesn't have to be in national parks. It doesn't have to be seeing tigers, like Pratika said. It was, the ants. It wasn't, the majestic tigers. But I think you're right. We clearly need a lot of action to address the big issues that we have. And I think it is, I don't know what else to say, but it is so important. And all of us, it's up to all of us, adults and other young people, to keep that momentum going and to do everything that we can to empower any young people who are finding their voice in this issue and figuring out where they stand, figuring out what their role is in this big thing and what role they can play, whether it's, like you said, Addison, in their community, or if it's, being that connector of connecting people and organizations. I think we all have a role to play in making sure that young people can be on, part of these processes like COP and, on boards, having advisory councils, really having real meaningful ways to bring that youth voice and giving young people those spaces to not only have their voices heard, but that's also, it just further builds their capacity to make change and be part of these bigger decision-making processes. So I'm not sure if that's where we were intending to go with that, with that thought, but I think that is just a really important point to, we can start with the green childhood and with creating those experiences in nature, but we definitely need to keep that momentum going forward. And we all have a role to play in continuing to empower young people as they're growing in this space, in this really rapidly changing world, and figuring out what role they play in that.
Yeah,
Great.
that's great. Addison, would you mind if I just pose a quick question to Radhika?
Go for it.
Yeah. So, Radhika, you were talking about, a phrase, behavioral change, when it came to a lot of things that you've been doing as an intervention with WWF. What do you think? I mean, how do you think that particular behavioral really changed based on the interventions that you would have done with a sample out there? I mean, just some thoughts on that would really help everyone.
Okay. So we definitely, education is a science. So we use certain ways, whatever we kind of immerse the children in, we use some pedagogical, theories. We know that experiential learning leads to more learning. So we use a certain cycle of learning where there is that immersion, there's that reflection. And basis that we hope that there will be behavior change.
Okay.
But the whole challenge, Amit, is that behavior can also turn, like today you may be having a certain behavior, right? And you've been doing it, but say an influencer comes and talks to you, your behavior says, oops, this sounds more rational, I'll go this way. So it's very, difficult to see. You have to immerse the person in a sustained way for a certain point of time. These are emerging kind of thoughts, but yes, but it's very important. It's very critical.
And
it's been a pandemic and we couldn't change our behavior over a mask, and we're talking climate change. So yes.
Right.
Yeah.
No, so that's a very important point. So what is the kind of age group that you intervene at what levels?
So ideally, if you go to, again, education and brain research and all, it should be early years, catch them as soon and young that it becomes a way of life. That's where it becomes, it's such a natural thing, right? But then, of course, we don't have luxury of that. We have to enter every age group in a different way. And one thing, I've been a teacher for so long, I'll just say that, the children we see today are so different, and they you have Irfan sitting there, right? So you don't have to treat them the same way. They don't need to be taught the same way. They have huge potential. Technology has changed their minds a lot. And we taught them a world of comfort and economic benefit and all. If they want to go the other way, they'll go the other way. So I think so. There's huge potential, and we should really focus on action and positivity over anxiety. I agree. It's not helping anyone. So
yeah. So I think just taking this point forward, and we'll come to the anxiety part. And I got a chance to make some of my notes while you all were talking. So Addison, you've been saved with any of these questions, so I'll push you to answer one of them. is that when it comes to behavioral change, or probably the media that we use with kids especially, right? Do you think the medium that you have chosen of audiovisual works better than any other medium, or you just need a combination of intervention with them? It could be books, it could be what Amira and Anira were talking about, that green I think the book of ABC, which is green, yeah. So Green Kids. So I think that kind of a book, or probably you mean the documentaries or the kind of learning programs that you work on. What really works the best?
What I really look at when I think about, again, we are within this ecosystem. We are within, it's all integrated. And I think what has also happened with not only us as adults, but with our children, if we're not careful, is that these senses are getting dulled. I've got ear pods in, and I'm training my ears to only hear what I want to hear. That has to be redirected. I'm wearing glasses. I'm training my eyes to see what I think is my, lack of vision at a distance.
Right.
Well, I was on a hike the other day and I felt a bobcat in my presence. And so that's a new sense that I have trained into being. So I think thinking about our senses is hugely important. And through different types of media, we will alert those senses and deepen them. If I say, oh, children, I'm only just going to read books. I love to read. That's fantastic. But I have all these other senses that will be shut down. So I think it is important to re-engage and deepen our own personal senses, and then teach children to be aware of all of those senses within themselves. And then look at each media. For me, I'm looking at publishing because of the way publishing was skewed to a certain audience, and in a way that we lived in the world, which is very different. When Emerging World does audio, we impart the sounds of nature of that community. If I'm talking to somebody about a river and such, I'm going to impart the sounds of that. And I think awakening these senses, deepening them, is really important, because children are different. They are, in a screen. They live in screens. And it's very, I use the word aperture. That aperture is very closed. And so opening that up, even our own, opening. So all of the media is important in combination.
Right.
All of the directions are important in combination. There are senses that we're not even aware of, that we're just not using. And if we talk about human beings being back in and remembering their place in nature, we will discover the depth of our senses. And that will change the way we treat this environment, our environment, and the way we live with it. It becomes that much more important. So, of course, we're going to be swapping out, outdoors, indoors for outdoors as much as we can. We're a species that came from doing everything outdoors. We washed our clothes, we ate, we found things, we did it with our families, we played games, we made toys, we did everything. And now, at least in this country, we spend 90% of our time indoors. That's as much as maximum security prison. So all of them, all of them.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Great. So I think taking that point forward, just a question to Tavi, and because he was making this point that it cannot be restricted to a particular media, and he made the same point. And also he was very vehement about how media is playing a role, which is a controlled media. Now, considering the fact that, Tavi, there has been amazingly rich biodiversity that Africa has, and you've been a flag bearer of green childhood in some form or the other, because the way it has influenced, the way your childhood has been influenced in many ways. do you think that it is a natural way that green childhood can be developed because of natural biodiversity and the rich biodiversity in Africa, and your ability to influence kids because of the environment that you have over there is far more better? Or there is something missing over there that it's difficult to influence kids in a certain way over there so that they can become the next Tabi or the flag bearers of green childhood? What do you think? Where does Africa stand in that?
Two or three things come to mind. First is that if we don't get the communication well, we lose the flock of our kids to the controlled media that helps in breeding the same kind of orientation that is misleading or that comes with misrepresentation. That's one. Two, already children all across Africa, I can attest to you, are already feeling the growth or the impacts of biodiversity loss, because Africa is currently having some of the largest amount of human displacement as a result of land degradation across the Sahel in the Great Green Wall, where I am the ambassador. So more information, books, games, toys, like she said, it's very amazing. And perhaps vividly, some natural things, like perhaps very, very directly, like what I'm doing, getting children to soil their hands to plant the trees by themselves together with me, like you can see here in this photo on, you can check this photo very well. Yeah. There are thousands of them. I mean, this is part of the kind of a system or communication or our unconventional media system that we can together actually breed all across the entire continent, where Africa is having the second largest, forest after the Amazon. And this constitutes a very big health asset for the global system. So, I mean, there is a lot to that. It's beyond what I just said. Yeah. And we can take the green childhood community to community with different trees, resources, and of course, even some of the products that I'm producing, we can see how we can, how can I say, we can brand these products to be more like children-oriented or child-oriented, and then maybe comes with some toys and things, just like what the conventional media is doing with cartoons today. So we can think beyond. Let's think out of the box. But also with what she said, I don't know, Radhika said something very amazing. The positive mindset. It's very important. Breathing this positive mindset about what their values and their benefits of working, spending time with nature, and doing incredible sacrificial voluntary things with nature, and reading, studying, sharing information about nature is actually so far-reaching, meaningful to your life now and your life in the future. So I think a combination of all these knowledges, experiences, and practices, most importantly, practice. Nothing inspires people like practice. So our best media is the media of nursing the trees, nursing the fruits, digging the hole, planting them in the soil, nurturing them to grow, and see them yield to fruition and produce value, environmental services value, ecosystem benefits, green growth benefits, all across. These can actually prove to the people. Like, for instance, let me just put it vividly. How did we achieve 3 million trees in a space of 6 years? It's unbelievable to so many media. Media will tell you, no, this is not possible, like so many have challenged me. And I am proving to them beyond that. So how can we put together this knowledge, this experience to our children to understand that a tree can be planted and grown within 6 months? That is otherwise thought that it needs to take 2-3 years for that to grow. That's one. Two, how did we create a 79 to 87 jobs like now we have today? How did we create these jobs? And something which I need you guys to also understand, Africa is suffering from a lot of resource-driven violence and human displacement and climate-driven migration. Right now, as we work with 6 young people who came back from Libya after a failed attempt to migrate to migrate to Europe through the Sahara Desert, trekking on foot, and sometimes you've seen many of them dying in the Mediterranean. We created these jobs from this restoration work. It is evidence-based. This is a provable case for children to learn and see their future in a more dignified way, doing things that are nature-related. We see how we brought back these young people from migration. They are now living a dignified life. This is a story to prove to other people, young people, that you don't need to think too much out of where you live. Think within and see how you can create a dignified life with nature where you are. This practice, these experiences, these stories, if we say them, share them, do them more and more over and over, and they see them, they feel them, they learn them, they internalize them, they become a culture. And the culture can now hold the green childhood that should create a green space for green leaders in the future. Thank you.
Very, very good. Thank you, Tabi. I mean, it was really inspiring. So, Nina, just one quick question to you, that considering the fact that you've been dealing with the environmental education, what kind of interventions that you've seen has worked in your geography, primarily while in the geographies that you deal with? What kind of communication has really worked? And if there's any kind of benchmarks that you have created during your interventions with NAI?
That's a great question. And I think because we are a network, we work at a network level and at a global level, we do a lot to try to compile what is working and showcase examples of what is working. And maybe I can share in the chat, we actually just recently came out with a publication, a series of communications about what works in early childhood education. And I think this might have been the Stanford study that Radhika was referring to. And we took that study in the next step further and pulled out some of the key things from that study so that educators, parents, decision makers, anyone who's not in that kind of science research realm can take that information and use it.
Got it.
And I think what surprised me from that study was you don't have to do anything fancy to have an impact. A lot of the projects, programs that found positive impacts on children in early childhood, so that's like ages 0 to 8, a lot of them were just around spending time outside, exploring. Yeah. Like I was saying, my earliest memories was just exploring in my backyard, and doing that in a safe way, doing that in an age appropriate way. But just giving children the chance to explore outside, focusing on play and games and having games in the outdoors and interacting with nature through games. And like Radhika mentioned, really experiential learning. So having any opportunity to experience nature, and that ideally will happen outside, but some people don't have that privilege. And so you can bring the outdoors inside if you need to, with, like I've said earlier, with natural materials. And so I'm not sure about specific benchmarks, but like Radhika was saying, it can be very difficult to measure these impacts when we're talking about education. We're not talking about trees planted or tons of waste collected. We're talking about knowledge and attitude and skills and values and changes in that, and hopefully eventually changing behavior and leading to action. But I can maybe share in the chat a link to that, and that goes into a little bit more about some of those big impacts that we have seen through early childhood education and how those are being measured. Yeah.
Thank you. That would help. So, Irfan, I can see your hand raised. If there's anything that you would like to speak, and then we'll try to get to the closing remarks by everyone. Kept everyone wait for a very, very long period of time.
So as Mr. Thani spoke in the starting about Africa's huge biodiversity, it reminded of the fact that I read that Serengeti means endless plains. And at that point of time, some scientists will discover, but how come a huge herd of wildebeest and zebras suddenly came to the grasslands, and within a day, you slept and woke up in the morning, they were all gone, thinking that the Serengeti had swallowed them. But then a research was done where they saw the migratory routes. And that must be the case of media as well. Media is a huge, strong thing which we can use to fight against climate change and biodiversity loss. But it needs to be done in a reasonable and right manner. At some point of time, 6 or 4 months back, some conservationists and scientists that I know and I've spoken to raise an awareness of the different misleading pictures taken by people of animals in strange poses, like a frog putting its hand saying hi. And the reason was given for the same. And it is because it is pretty extraordinary. When we look at long back, first we can say that once a species become our target, there is nowhere that on earth that it can hide. And just during the starting of 1970s, whaling ships were killing thousands of whales, and the whales, including the blue whales, numbered only to a few thousand, and they were virtually impossible to find. But at some point of time, these animals, due to the sound they created, were viewed as was viewed beyond as a little source of oil and meat. They became personalities, and a public outcry led to a global agreement to protect whales. But it was very long back, since back then there was no media. But now that awareness, that impact can be clearly just in a global scale. And I think one of the most important things is children. What I saw during the COVID-19 pandemic was many children came to a point where they were interested and spread awareness about their local wildlife. And because you must understand that, let's say, if I or any of us were about to be born today, we would be witness to dramatic things if we don't take action. By 2030, the Amazon rainforest would be cut down to a level that it can no longer produce enough moisture, degrading it to a dry savanna, bringing catastrophic species loss and altering global water cycles. At the same time, a global, Arctic becomes ice-free in the summer, and without the white ice caps, less sunlight is reflected back out into space. So I won't go much further, but if we look at it by 20.
I know, Irfan, we are running out of time. I think I'll have to ask the closing remarks from other participants as well. I'm sorry to interrupt you in the conversation, but I'd like to ask Radhika if there's any closing remark on the conversations that we've been having from you.
Yeah, I just feel that I think so. This was a very important topic to be discussed, and a green childhood has kind of changed from our time to this time, and all of us should continue, I think so, collaborating and having these conversations, because I was talking to Judy from Nina's organization, that we keep replicating stuff. So I think so it's very important that we collaborate, we share, we have these conversations, we learn from each other, and ensure that the future generations are absolutely safe and sound. So I mean, that's the only thing
that's very, very important. That's very important. And that's, I think, to bring Nina and Radhika together, that's where WeNaturalists is going to play a role. That's the whole idea, right? It's what Tabi mentioned, it's about joint commitment and joint action. So I think we'll have to all come together to create that. Edison, what do you think? Your closing remark, I can always move.
I think a beautiful and brilliant conversation that certainly is needs to move into, continuous action. We love to talk, and that's a good thing, but action is even a better thing. My closing remarks have to do with, and I just seem to have a propensity to want to say this, that as individuals, having been on this plane for a while, is that we take the time to check with ourselves. We are trying to hand something off, whether it's knowledge, a shared experience to young people, and they're that somehow they're coming into the world with. But I also notice that I have to be willing to not know when I think I might know, and let the unknown reveal itself. And I also have to start from the beginning every single morning when I get up, and begin to look at the world in a different way, and to train myself to look at the world in a different way. And then I will move into living in the world in a different way, and that rubs off. And it starts with each one of us. So a green childhood, absolutely. I'm going to start my green childhood as soon as I hang up with you. So that's my closing remark. You're on mute.
Yep. Tabi, anything at your end, closing remarks? Any words of wisdom?
Well, there's a lot to say, but I want to sincerely appreciate all of these amazing people for the voluntary effort. You've proven that really you have your heart and soul to this mission. And I just want to say, let's live by the commitments, translating all the words into action. There is large space here in Africa where we can continue planting as much trees as possible, and sharing the images, the vision, and the videos all across the world for people to know that these degraded lands are possible to be converted into viable, thriving ecosystems that can provide the biodiversity that we are losing, or regenerating the biodiversity that we are losing. This is the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for this discussion. And I think there's lots and lots to take home today. Obviously, our note's going to help, but thank you for all this time. I would take this opportunity to, in fact, just say that WeNaturalists is going to be driving a lot related to green childhood. The plans are on the way. And individually and collectively, I'll always be in touch with, most of you and understand what more we can do and partner in many other ways. So with that, I'll take this opportunity to, start the next part of our event. This for this event is the awards that we wanted to bring in. And the awards largely honor the people of nature who've been doing some amazing work all the year round and for their lives. And we actually could figure out some amazing people all over the world to ensure that they are motivating more and more people worldwide, to ensure that they are bringing in newer innovations and solutions for nature positive world in one way or the other, right? So green childhood can be one part of it, but that's not end all and be all. We'll have to work much harder to ensure, and all these people of nature will be the conduit, will really help us inspire in one form or the other. So I will open the ceremony, award ceremony, and I'll invite my colleague Sabika to take over from here and introduce us to some amazing people who've been moving the world in their natural world. Thank you, everyone. Sabika, over to you.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Amit. And thank you to all our panelists for such an invigorating discussion. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the Green Childhood Movement shapes up. Now, I'd like to begin with the second part of our presentation, which is the WeNaturalists People of Nature Awards. At WeNaturalists, it's been our belief that every nature positive action materially impacts future generations. On World People of Nature Day, we are honoring those who are working on real solutions. We are committed to bringing their stories and messages to the fore. The stories of the people of nature can only become a true success when everyone joins the celebration. World People of Nature Day is bringing it one step closer to making this dream a reality. Let's begin by introducing our first ever awardee for WeNaturalists People of Nature Awards. The first category is Nature Positive Innovation. Finding unique solutions, making processes more efficient to protect biodiversity, rewilding the world with restoration efforts. This award recognizes innovations that bridge the gap between an unsustainable present and a more sustainable future. The award for Nature Positive Innovation goes to Anwar Abdullah. Anwar is the founder of Ocean Quest Global. While there are many methods of coral reef rehabilitation available, which include PVC piping, leather, and electrolysis, Anwar, through his persistent efforts and research, developed a non-invasive, all-natural method of coral reef propagation. In this journey, he has trained people to adopt this technique and build a sustainable model for their conservation efforts. Let's hear a few words from the man himself. Anwar, could you say a few words for us?
Thank you, Sabita, and thank you, Amit, for the honor to have me in the award. It was not an easy journey. It's for every one of us in the conservation. My background was not a biologist. I'm an oceanographer, and I'm a scientist, but I'm not a marine biologist, right? But it is a passion. When I was listening about the childhood thing, it gave me flashback because I grew up along the coast. I played in the ocean when I was very young. And it was just a turn of luck, or maybe my destiny, that when I grew up, I was an underprivileged person. I was an underprivileged child. Okay, so I did not experience good parenthood and all this because I've lost my parent early, and through that, it gives me a very good experience of learning and put my effort into learning. And I become a very good student that makes me able to obtain scholarship that I go to United States for study. Yeah. But when I get there, I was given a scholarship to study petroleum, actually, petroleum engineering. But when I get there and I suddenly realized, it was like a big sledgehammer hit on my head, and I suddenly realized that it is not for me. It is basically not for me. In 2 months into the course, 2 months into the study, I was giving up. And then by just a stroke of luck, I saw on a bulletin board that there's a oceanography course going on down in Florida, down south in Florida. And then I said, this is for me. I want to be in the ocean. And then from there on, I start writing up to my sponsors, writing up so that I can change course from petroleum to oceanography. And sure enough, because they are exploring oil in the ocean, they needed oceanographers. And then I changed course. Then I landed in a place called Melbourne in Florida. And there I studied oceanography. And 3 years down the line, I ended up working at the institute for almost a year, right? This is because during the recession time, if you remember, those the recession time, the company wrote back to me that even if I go back to Malaysia, they won't be able to give me a position to work. And therefore, I'm free to take a job elsewhere while waiting. And when I was working as basically a lecturer, a very, very young lecturer at that time, guiding students that was just 2-3 years my junior, right? I was like, I'm not sure whether I'm able to teach people because people look at me because I'm almost like the same age. I'm even smaller because I'm Asian in the United States. To go to buy clothes, I have to go to the kids section, right? So that's how small I am compared to them, right? So, and then I have to stand in front of this class and talk about things. So, but anyway, story gets shorter. I get the drive to want to rehabilitate coral reef. At that time, it was early 70s or it was mid 70s, right? 1980, when I came back to Malaysia, I still did not have a job with the petroleum company. They come back to me 15 years later offering me a job that I have never practiced any of those things that I learned, which I'm out of trend basically. So I couldn't take the job. I refused to take the job because basically I'm 15 years back. I don't know, the technology has gone so much that I couldn't handle it. And then they said, okay, you can do whatever you want. And then I continue from there on to do conservation. It was not an easy journey because my lack of knowledge at that time of coral reef, lack of material at that time, internet was not there yet, right? And then it was a difficult journey. But anyway, I researched and researched. It took me from 1981 to year almost 2000 to reach the point that I have discovered something. Between 1981 to 2000, that's a long time, right? It was failure. It was failure, complete failure. During that time, I can tell you, I have almost no friends. People think I'm crazy, right? Because I refuse to let go, even though it was difficult. But then in 2000, I start to get success in what I'm doing. It takes another 4 years for the success to be proven, right? When you get something to work, you have to prove it, right? And then it takes another 4 years, 2004. It was proven to me that it works in 2004. It was not proven to the public yet. That's another step. It took another 6 years between 2004 to 2010 to convince people basically that what I'm doing works, right? So basically I have to grow a coral reef and document it throughout that 6 years between 2004 and 2010, 6 years of documenting and then publishing. And then I was invited to speak in Singapore one day. And then they said, they introduced me to a lot of international people when I showed the slides of all the progress and the development that I grew a coral reef. And then thereon, it starts to go up.
Great story.
But the progress did not go well. In 2010, when people started to know me, the progress did not go well. Why? Because I was alone. I did not have an organization at that time. That is the birth of OceanQuest Global in 2010, because I was told by friends my new friends, basically, the international friends, they said, Anwar, you need an organization. Without an organization, you can't get funding, you can't get a lot of things, right? As an individual. And then when I think of it, then I said, okay, I sat and in a calculated way, I set up OceanQuest Global. When OceanQuest Global was born, it was OceanQuest Malaysia. It was not even OceanQuest Asia yet, 2010. But it goes like, it was steep like this. It shoots up quickly. Within 2 years, between 2010 and 2012, we become OceanQuest Asia. I was in the Philippines, I was in Indonesia, I was in Brunei, I was in Thailand, I was in Malaysia. I covered the whole Southeast Asia in 2 years. How do I do it? This is what I'm going to share with you. Because I refuse to accept grants. I know that grants are obligation. When I accept grants or I apply for grants or any kind of funding from governmental thing, basically they can hold me. I don't want to be whole. I want to be able to go free, right? So I have this knowledge and I developed our education system. I developed an education system. I was teaching people that time. I was teaching people how to do corals. But me alone, I cannot expand. How much money can I make to fund my project if I'm teaching alone? So what I do, I duplicate myself. I train the trainers. I train the trainers. That's why we have 2,700 trainers around the world today, right? Imagine now, if you have a knowledge of how to teach a kid, how to plant coral, right? And then you duplicate 2,700 of you, and each teach 10 people per month. And each student will pay a registration fee, not much, only $12. Our registration fee is only $12, right? But you multiply 2,700 by 10 by $12. And that's a lot of money per month already. That's enough because OceanQuest did not have employees, including myself. We work voluntarily, right? So that money was put back into research. And then when Amit came to me and said about this event, right? It was talking about innovation, right? I was working on another program already. The program that we are talking about, the coral reef, that was going obsolete actually. The new program is tackling solve three crises at the same time. One is the water crisis. Second is the food and resources crisis. And third is the coral reef crisis. How do I do that? I do high value agriculture, high value agriculture whereby it uses technology and it did not use large spaces, right? One of the examples is we teach the local coastal community how to grow vanilla, saffron, high value crops, right? And then we teach them the economics of it, we arrange for the marketing of it, we arrange everything. What do I do then? When we get them to do that, we get corporations to sponsor the equipment. We get corporations to sponsor whatever I need to set up, basically greenhouses, right?
Yeah.
How does it benefit the reef? It benefits the reef when I draw them away from the reef and give them income. I draw them away from the ocean and give them separate income, which is more lucrative than they going fishing at the reef, right? Now that's the new innovation thing. And how does it solve the water crisis? Now imagine if I, in the next 10 years, I have 1,000 of these greenhouses around Southeast Asia. It will reduce people from buying vegetable from industrial agriculture that's wastewater. My technique, my technology-based agriculture use 90% less water, right? So therefore, if half the population of the world is consuming from communities that uses the technology to grow food, they don't need the industrial agriculture, basically. And therefore, it stops wasting water, right? Food is readily coming from the farms. Food crisis, water crisis, and coral reef crisis solved in one simple program. But it takes technology. That's why I'm restudying again now. I'm 60 years old, but I have to go back to study technology again, right? This is what I'm doing today. So, but anyway, we have to teach people how to do these things. Me alone, I don't live forever, right? But if the knowledge that comes in must go out and spread out, and then who does it spread out to? It's spread out to the children, it's spread out to the younger people. My work today, when children visit me, some of my friends bring their children to visit me, they get impressed by the machines and the robotics and the things that is in the garden. Basically, I don't have to look at my garden. I look at my phone, right? I look at my phone. I know how many lettuce today, how many bok choy today, how many tomatoes are there, right? I know what's the humidity, climate, the UV radiation that penetrates my facility. I know everything just in my smartphone, right? And that technology was no longer expensive. It is no longer expensive at all, provided we know how to use it, right?
Right.
It is available. India is one of the biggest electronics country in the world today. So many experts in India on electronics. In fact, some of them is talking to me about, I've been getting from there, right?
So
China,
I think, Anwar, I'm really sorry to interrupt. There are a lot of people waiting. And
yeah.
I'm really sorry that it's an inspiring story, but I'll have to interrupt you here.
Okay.
So thank you so much for being here. And maybe you may want to, if you are closer to the trophy, you may want to hold it and show the world what you have. No, that's perfectly fine. But that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. I think, thank you so much, Anwar. I think this new innovation is something that we'll connect again on this. We've never spoken at length on that. But I think that's an amazing work, right? Thank you so much, Anwar. You've always inspired.
I have to thank you all for the recognition given to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anwar, for sharing your story with us. Now moving on to the next category, which is storyteller with a purpose. One picture, one video, one article has the power to inspire the world. This award recognizes such storytellers, be it photographers, videographers, and writers. Those who can change the way we perceive the world through their storytelling. The winner for Storyteller with a Purpose is Rafiqul Islam Montu. Rafiqul is an environmental journalist from Bangladesh. He has been writing for over 30 years for national and international media. He's primarily highlighted stories of climate change in the coastal regions and the communities that live around it. Rafiqul has established the Coastal Journalism Network by bringing 500 people together to create a formidable coastal coverage powerhouse. Because of his groundbreaking efforts, there has been massive coverage of issues faced by the local communities in the coastal belt. We commend his efforts for bringing out such stories to light. Let's hear a few words from Rafiqul himself. Rafiqul, if you could unmute.
Thank you. I am starting my speech by greetings everyone connected in this program. Here I am presenting my written reaction. Thank you to WeNaturalists from this recognition. I am very happy to receive this award. This award has further enhanced my responsibility in the relevant field. I have been working on coastal journalism in Bangladesh for decades. This is an exclusive section of environmental journalism. People in the coastal marginalized areas rarely get a coverage in the media. The story on the coastal issue were previously very neglected. In the event of a cyclone or a major event, the media would run to the coast. But now, the importance of the coastal stories in the media has increased a lot. The road to being an environmental journalist has not been easy, but it's fulfilling. It's been my humble effort to visit different coastal zones to investigate and situation and share these stories through my work. I have also created the Coastal Journalism Network to improve coastal journalism in Bangladesh. The new generation of young journalists is now quite interested in coastal journalism. I was able to spread the idea of coastal journalism among them. Coastal journalism is recognized by the state-run Press Institute of Bangladesh, PIB. Now, not only in the media of country, I have been able to raise these stories of the coast in the international media. My story was published in Guardian in the UK, Thomson Reuters Foundation News in the UK, the Third Pole in the UK, the New Humanitarian in Switzerland, Tree Hugger in the US, and Gao Connection in India. Climate change is upon us, and understanding the communities that will be the most affected by it is crucial. I hope this recognition can help speed the work of coastal journalism everywhere. I know that we naturalists as a digital ecosystem can help in amplifying that message of protecting nature across the globe. I wish them all the best and hope to network and find more magnifying, more meaningful opportunities on the platform. All the best. Thank you all. Good luck.
Thank you, Rafiqul. And I must tell you the stories that you've been bringing to the table, and I'm sure they're going to go a long way, because it's not going to remain, or it's never remained in Bangladesh itself. Because just to initiate a coverage of an underprivileged location or an area, it's not very easy. And the stuff that you've been doing and bringing so many people and inspiring them to write about local happenings it's not easy to do and bring everyone together. So congratulations on doing this. And I hope that you keep on inspiring people world over. Thank you so much, Rafiqul.
Thank you, Rafiqul. Coming to our next category, which is climate change voice. The urgent climate crisis needs action. This award recognizes a voice that has inspired collective climate action for a larger impact. The recipient for the award is Kaluki Paul Mutuku. Nature and youth. These two ingredients are critical in our search for solutions to the planetary crisis. Raised in Kenya, Kaluki's involvement in conservation was inspired by the direct challenges his family and the wider community face due to climate change. He's experienced the richness of green Kenya decline, which has led him to become a leading climate voice in Africa. From speaking up against Kenya's first coal power plant in 2016 to founding the Green Treasures Farm, he has played an active role in educating, empowering, and mobilizing the youth. Thank you, Kaluki, for inspiring the youth of today and tomorrow. We request you to say a few words.
Thank you so much. And it's such an honor to receive this award. I do appreciate WeNaturalists and every global citizen who is watching this. And to me, I hope that my voice speaks to young people across the world who are doing a lot to improve community action and to inspire the next generation of leaders in terms of climate action and natural restoration. So I think I want to prove that young people don't waste a lot of time and just say thank you so much for the honor. And I hope that whoever listens to me today can get inspiration to work together, to be a leading voice in whatever they're doing, and to really find global champions that can work together with them to make the dots work and to put action forward for climate action. And lastly, to say a happy World People of Nature Day to all of you, and back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for wishing us. And Kaluki, your work has been all throughout. I mean, whatever we've read and spoken to you has always given us goosebumps that at a early age, how could you manage so many things together? And we're told that you've been working on almost 3 organizations at the same time, right? It's extremely commendable, and Kenya really needs you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit. I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Now, moving on to our next category, which is nature conservation. Conservation needs persistent and relentless efforts, from researching to involving communities to putting plans into action. This award recognizes individuals working to protect the planet and their actions. The recipient of the award for nature conservation is Ritesh Sarothia. Ritesh is the officer in charge of the Special Task Force and State Tiger Strike Force in the state of Madhya Pradesh in India. He has played a pivotal role in sensitizing more than 6,500 officers around the country on combating wildlife crimes. His key intervention in wildlife includes working with elephants, pangolins, turtles, and tigers. So far, he has arrested 700 accused in a 6-year period. His relentless efforts to protect wildlife are truly commendable. Ritesh ji, we would love to hear a few words about your journey in doubling down on illegal wildlife trade and trafficking.
Thank you, Sabita. Good evening to all and namaskar. I don't want to take much time, but really it's a thanks and honored that the work of me and my team is recognized by the WeNaturalists. This is really a challenge, especially a country where we are having 1.3 billion people in other hand and a good biodiversity in a different end. So when I work in this field, so I really feel that there is some lack of seriousness or lack of sensitizations towards the forest and wildlife crime. So the environment education is in one hand, but some deterrence is required to work together by all law enforcement agencies. So that I took a kind of a journey with support of my team and the support from my organization, my senior officers, and that led to the result. I think there is a name that India having a good cases history, and what we are here, it took a lot of time and pain. So to cut to a long story, once again, thank you so much. There are many more of my team who actually want to be share of this beautiful award. I want to show the trophy, a very beautiful trophy. And really, I once again thank you so much to especially Mr. Amit Bankaji for giving me opportunities and boost up our confidence. And looking forward to all of you and joining a new group of community, all part of the group, Green Warrior, especially one is doing in environment conservation, ocean conservation, climate voice activist. I'm really happy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. In fact, I had a chance to meet with Ritesh some time back, and there were certain myths that we all were working with, but he just shattered them within 1 hour's time. So I am thanking him from bottom of my heart. That was an amazing session that I had with him. But in addition to that, it's important for everyone to know that outside of so many, more than 29, 30 states in the country, only a state in the central India, Madhya Pradesh, has constituted this kind of a task force which works with wildlife trafficking and anti-trafficking and anti-poaching unit. And it's a commendable effort by this particular state. And I think not just the country and the other states in the country, but the world should get inspired and understand the kind of work that goes into this particular unit. Thank you so much, Ritesh, for this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next category is environmental educator. Well, considering how much we've spoken about green childhood, I probably don't need to tell everyone just how important this category is for us. It goes without saying that environmental education is crucial for us in the face of an urgent climate crisis. This award recognizes the exemplary efforts of an educator in this field. After careful consideration, we've chosen Joe Krabowski, a science communicator, educator working to inspire the next generation of scientists and explorers. He is the founder of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, which brings nature-related teachings into classrooms across North America. He's run over 700 events connecting over 100,000 students with scientists and explorers from over 50 countries. Wow. Joe, we'd love to hear more about your work.
All right, absolutely. Well, first of all, a big shout out to everybody. Happy World People of Nature Day. Also a shout out to WeNaturalists and all of the organizers for this event, and of course for this honor. It's a beautiful trophy, and I appreciate the recognition. So thank you so much for that today. So I grew up getting dirty outside, watching David Attenborough and Jacques Cousteau documentaries, reading through National Geographic magazines. And I think that early introduction has always stuck with me. And I knew I wanted to become an educator. I knew I wanted to inspire that next generation of scientists and explorers around the world. So I launched Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. Our goal is to bring science, adventure, exploration, and conservation live into classrooms everywhere. So right now we're doing it across North America, but our goal is to start expanding that around the world, bringing these live virtual events, bringing the people from the front lines of conservation, of science, of exploration, right live into the classrooms. So we do it through virtual events. We do it through live events in the field from some of the most remote places on the planet. And as you mentioned, we've done a lot of events. To date now, we're up to over 3,000 live events, over 500,000 students, and we've brought 95 countries live to classrooms, scientists and explorers from those countries. So, that's our goal. I've always believed, and the stories I hear from conservationists, scientists, and explorers is they can all remember when it happened, when they met someone, maybe it was seeing a documentary, reading a book, an inspirational educator, and it flipped a switch. It ignited the passion for their chosen pursuit. And that's what we're trying to do, is bring those people from the front lines into classrooms and create those tiny aha moments to spark those passions in students everywhere. So it's amazing to be part of this community. Thank you so much for this honor. And I look forward to growing with WeNaturalists as we take our live events from North America globally.
Yep. Thank you, Joe. And I think these are not tiny. They are lot more bigger aha moments. And I think we'll have an opportunity to share them with you. So thank you so much for being part of our journey in our first People of Nature Awards. Thank you so much for that. And that trophy really looks good in your hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's just come to our next category, which is special contribution to green childhood. This category means a lot to us because this individual is taking the effort to live by her dream of creating a green childhood. Eco Masters, a Planet in Peril author, Donna Goodman, has been a champion of the rights and participation of children and young people in the environment sector for more than 25 years. She worked as a driving force towards the recognition of children and youth as a constituency to the UNFCCC, which is now known as Youngo. We would love to hear more about green childhood from Donna. Donna, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sabika and to Amit and all today's panelists and award winners. I'm humbled to be among you. And I'm really thrilled and overjoyed that WeNaturalists included a copy of my book, Eco Masters, in with these invaluable prizes, because I just love mine and have been bringing it around. I live in Florida and been walking around with the trophy. It's just beautiful. Loves to be with the trees. And yeah, so I've been talking to kids, working with kids all over the world in more than 60 countries for my entire career. And so have been devoted to green childhood and what these kids can do and how we can support them. Someone mentioned on the panel today that these children are different. Those of us who have been working in education for a long time realize that these children are really more highly evolved than many of us were who were blessed to be in our backyards finding earthworms. And I have a story of when I was a little girl, I used to dig in the backyard very quickly in my house and find earthworms and things. And my mother would come out and say, "What do you think you are doing, digging yourself to China?" And one day, you know, about 20 years later, I got off the plane in China and I said, you know, I think I did dig myself to China, and you know, then had the honor of working with kids there. And the Eco Masters it's 13-year-old girl led. The reason I've switched to fiction at this point in my career is to try to reach millions. There are 2.2 billion people under the age of 18 on Earth today. And so working in 1,000 schools or 100 schools or 10,000 kids was good, but I am feeling the sense of urgency. And so have gone with fiction and books and hopefully into multimedia platforms and games and training centers, which I would love to talk to some of you about partnering on. So the Eco Masters, just very quickly, they're all 13-year-old girls. It's girl-led. It starts in the United States, in New York City, and to Malawi, Laos, India, and they have to get to a hidden training center in the Amazon region of Brazil. And it's the first action adventure series of the type of like Harry Potter or others that are completely girl-led, and not only just girl-led or multicultural, but also global. They're all taking local actions in their global, in their local places, but it's a very global story. And the magic is all water magic, and it's things that are possible within science. So I hope those of you who have the book will read it and get back to me and brainstorm ideas. And thank you so much to Amit and Sabika and all of WeNaturalists for the award, and wonderful evening or day for everyone.
Thank you, Donna. Setu is smiling, so saying thanks. So I guess, Donna, I think you should have also spoken about your series of books. It's not only one, you're getting to the second and the third and the fourth. So it's never ending. It's like, as you rightly said, it's Harry Potter. So it's an honor to have you on board, and also working through the thick and thin of WeNaturalists, right? And I think you've been a great support, and we are honored to present you this award. In fact, it's always a blessing having you around. Thank you, Donna. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our next set of categories. These are the young achievers. Of course, we've been talking about green childhood, so of course we had to give awards to some of our young achievers. They say you are more effective when you start young. We already know that the younger generation has the power to influence and inspire our today for a better tomorrow. It's time to tell the world. The Young Achiever Award recognizes the inspiring youth of today. The winner for the category Storyteller with a Purpose is Irfan Ferozi. He was also our speaker, so of course, you know a little bit about him. He began his journey at the age of 10 when he started researching animals and plants. Irfan, we'd love to hear a few words from you.
Thank you very much. So I don't know much to say. Most of us here, I believe, are inspired by many, old and young generation people. I was mainly inspired by Sir David Attenborough and a letter which I received from him, telling that, well, nature should not be in your career. It should not be your job. Anyone has an impact. Anyone can create change in the world. And we realized this at some point of time when we stood still during the COVID-19 pandemic, that only a single note can be beautiful. One path is an opportunity. One mind can be powerful. One heart can be unbreakable, but it is together. Together creates symphonies. It takes new steps. Together we feel alive. We go beyond what's possible, and you learn from each other. Sharing our lives, appreciating what we have together. Now, together can be found all around us. We just have to look. In the end, we realize that being apart brought us closer together. And what together means is this. And together we can save the planet. We must mimic nature, and when we think about it, it is similar to a journey. 10,000 years ago, as hunter-gatherers, a sustainable life was the only option. And many years later, it is still an option. The past has been written, but the future is yet to be determined and is in our hands. And I thank WeNaturalists and everyone on the team that organized me and saw me as the storyteller with young purpose. And I thank everyone else who was there in the event. And I wish you every success and wisdom in your deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Irfan. Lovely to have you around. Thank you.
All right, now the young achiever in the nature conservation category goes to Anusha Vesh. Anusha is a 5th grader from New York who believes that change begins with us, and she lives by it. Her journey started 3 years ago when she was captivated by a 2nd grade science project on how such tiny but resilient insects survive in nature. And since then, there's been no stopping her. She's working towards preserving, conserving, and protecting insects. In the words of Anusha herself, insects are not scary, they are just misunderstood. We can't wait to see how far Anusha goes in her quest to protect them. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us today because she had an exam, but she has sent us a short video. Let's hear it.
I am extremely honored to receive the People of Nature Award. I am grateful to this amazing recognition. I am sure that all the other nominees for this award are just as capable as I am. I would have never been able to do this without the help from my school teachers, citizen scientists, and experts in the field of entomology. I would like to thank WeNaturalists for bringing this whole event together and presenting me with the award and recognition. Before we leave, I would like to give one last thank you. Just like a tree who keeps on giving, first its fruit, then its bark, then its wood. Earth keeps on giving too. So thank you, Mother Earth.
Wow, what a message. And I have had a chance to speak to this girl some time back, and she nothing but inspires so much of activity, action, and enthusiasm to reach out to the world and tell them that how insects are so important for everything that we do on this Mother Earth, whether it's food cycle, whether it is our own living or nature the way we protect. Insects are so important. So thank you, Anusha, for being an inspiration to the world. Maybe Sobhika, the next one.
Yeah. Now, the climate change voice in the Young Achiever category goes to Dyson Chi. Dyson Chi is a 17-year-old environmental activist from Honolulu, Hawaii, who founded Project Ocean Hawaii, an initiative to tackle the plastic pollution in the ocean and beyond. Due to the time difference, he couldn't join us live, but Dyson has shared a few words with us and talked about his journey. Let's just play the video.
Aloha, my kako. My name is Dyson Chi, and I am one of the youth awardees for the World People of Nature Day Awards. And I'd just like to kick it off by sharing my thanks to WeNaturalists for inviting me and nominating me to be a part of this award. It is an honor. So to share a little bit about myself, I'm 19 years old. I live in Honolulu, Hawaii. And the reason why I got involved in the movement, specifically to end plastic pollution, is because growing up in Hawaii, we are completely surrounded by the ocean. And I spent basically most of my childhood at the beach, in the ocean, snorkeling, bodyboarding, surfing, you name it, I loved it. But as time went on, I began to notice that there was a lot of other stuff in the water, things that shouldn't be there. Bits of microplastics, plastic utensils, a chip wrapper. And these things bugged me, and eventually I decided that I needed to do something about this issue. I love the ocean, and as one wise person once said, people protect what they love. So I set out on my journey to protect the ocean at around maybe when I was about 14 years old. And since then, the effort has just really culminated and built up into a huge movement. Here locally, we've managed to get single-use plastics banned. Straws, utensils, styrofoam, plastic cups, lids, a variety of single-use plastics are no longer allowed or will soon be no longer allowed here on the island of Oahu where I live on. And the movement is just growing every single day. That was one of our wins we've gotten. We've gotten so many others. And so, for this award, I really want to share not only, to hopefully inspire you with my story, but to share the power of our collective action. All of the efforts that we have done and have seen succeed here in Hawaii and also on a global and national scale were thanks to hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people. So I encourage you to get involved. I know WeNaturalists has its own platform that allows people like us who care about the planet to be able to connect and collaborate on. So I encourage you to connect, to stay in touch with each other, and to really build this world into a better place where my generation cannot just live, but thrive.
What a message. Amazing. And I think most of these people are this generation. They are just born to drive, not just live. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dyson, to tell us this particular story. Here we, I think, come to the end of the awards night. I would like to, I know we have, it's dragged to beyond the time that we had envisaged, but thank you so much. Thank you everyone who've stuck around. Thank you the entire team WeNaturalists who've been so excited all this while to put it together and bring people on board from the world over. It was such a difficult task for everyone to be to put this particular award night and the evening together. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, the panel. Thank you, thoughtful minds of both the kids, Amira and Ara. Thank you, Dr. Buj, and the panelists, Edison, Radhika, Nina, Tabi, and Irfan. Thank you all these people who have inspired us, the awardees. And we hope to bring you a much better a much better evening the next year around while we celebrate the World People of Nature Day. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.